maybe we can start by talking about what makes Learnlife different from other schools, from other learning communities. What makes it special?
Cool. Why don't we let you guys start since you've come from different places? Gerard, you want to start with your experience kind of being to a couple of schools before here?
So yeah, of course. So I've been to 3 schools before coming here. I went to one in Barcelona. Actually, I went to 2 in Barcelona. One was a super traditional Catholic school that didn't really teach much. It was more of a keeping you there and forcing you to memorize things. Then I went to another one, which was a super international school. Well, quote unquote super international, because they weren't really international. In which, yeah, they push you to learn things, but they also use memorization techniques that didn't last long in the brain. So I didn't really learn much there either. And then I moved to the States, and I went to an art school where I focused myself on art, just photography, videography, bit of drawing. And there I did learn a bunch because they used completely different methods to what I was used to, but they still did exams and they still had traditional subjects because it was a charter school. And after realizing that that does not work for me because I just can't do that because I'm not a memorization person and it's just not my thing, I decided that I wasn't going to school anymore. And my parents were not happy with that decision. So they looked around and they found Learnlife. And I came here once on a Thursday. I was here for 3 hours, or actually 2 hours. I looked around, got introduced to everything. I liked it so much that I started on Monday. And it's been great ever since. I've grown so much in the last 11 months. I went from being a pretty, from having no guiding / teaching skills to being able to lead my own class and teach in the afternoon programs here.
Wow.
Yeah.
What would you say are some of the big differences when you arrived here that you're like, oh wow, this is learning differently?
Well, no exams. That was the first big thing that I was really happy about. No homework, and you could choose what you wanted to learn. You could sit down and say, hey, so this is my passion, this is what I like, and this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And they help you get there. They push you to it. And they teach you how to push yourself into doing things, and they teach you how to learn. It's not you sitting down and being like, okay, so x plus y equals 3. How am I gonna solve this? And then you look at a textbook and memorize it, and then 3 weeks later you're like, ha, what? It's more organic. They teach you how to say, okay, I wanna learn this. I'm gonna sit down for 3 hours today. I'm gonna sit down for 3 hours tomorrow. And I'm gonna figure it out. And if I can't remember in 15 days, I can do the same thing.
For me, I grew up in Russia, and I went first to an international school. And at first I liked it, but then I realized that I was like the system. For me, I was happy there because I never knew a different reality than that one. Then my parents both actually decided to move me to a private Russian school. And that was probably the worst experience of school ever for me, because the way the teachers treated you there, it was horrible because they would sometimes insult you. They would tell you what to do if you were right or wrong. And it was just like not a place where I wanted to be. So my parents realized that it just isn't working like that, because at some rate, the kids, according to the teachers, were so like badly behaved every day that they just wanted a parent to come and sit in every class to watch the kids. And my parents then realized that like this is not gonna work, and I was homeschooled for about half a year. And then my parents first they wanted to live in Berlin because my dad is German. We speak the language, and it was the easy option. But unfortunately, they only had one place in the school we wanted to go, and I have a twin brother, and it wouldn't work because if I went to school, he wouldn't. I mean, we could have tried the strategy where I go one day, he goes the other day, and hope the teachers don't notice. Yeah, but we decided to move to Barcelona, and the first year I went to Momo, which is the partner school of Learnlife. And it was hard for me because it was a completely new way of learning, and I didn't speak the language. But thanks to Momo, I learned Catalan and Spanish in the first year. And then I came to Learn Life, and it was more than I thought. It was much better. I mean, it's super fun to learn. And the way like they teach you, they don't even teach you. You learn yourself using your own ways. Some people draw and like put their output in a way. I made an output, like a movie, which I never thought I could do. I started doing so many new things. I started skateboarding, for example, and back in Russia when I tried it, I fell onto the concrete like this, rolled back onto my head, and I thought I'd never do it again. But in general, it's just been like really eye-opening to see that there is another way to learn than just the classic system, and I couldn't imagine going back to like a classic system because that would be like going through hell all over again.
Can you guys talk a little bit about, I think it's interesting, Gerard, who is 16, with Samir, who is 11 or 12 now? You're 12 now, right?
Yes.
Is this your birthday? That's right.
It was.
Right, and then you've also led an Adelante?
No, Raj did.
Raj did, and then, but you, okay.
I was proposing to, but it was too late because cycle 1 was finishing and we had our 360s, which are our kind of exams. Not really. We just show in like a presentation what we learned and did through the first cycle, which were 3 months. And yeah, it was really fun actually making them. But I couldn't lead an Adelante, which is basically like a workshop led by either a learner or a learning guide. And it can be whatever. It can be skating, it can be paper mache, it can be editing, animation, and improv theater, which Gerard led. It was super fun and funny. So yeah, and I was going to lead one, but I couldn't because of the 360s. So I'm gonna probably lead one in cycle 2.
What was it like to be in have another learner leading a workshop with you?
It was really fun because Gerard and the other kids that were there, they understand what it's like to be a learner rather than the learning guides, because I mean, they don't understand what it's like to be a learner here, and Gerard understood that, and he, like, at the end, even though during lessons, I mean, we would have such fun and just go with the flow, the output was really great, and I think we managed to like circulate all the work and everything we learned into one output. And it was really fun being in the
You guys were
Adelante.
hilarious. At the end of this 2-week workshop, it's like an hour a day for 2 weeks, they do a presentation on showing what they've learned, and they did an improvisation skit, and it was hilarious. You guys had it.
The one with Yara and where we were like,
That was really funny.
So with something like that, with the like hosting teaching an improv class, like where do you so you decide what you want to learn? Is that what you're saying?
So for Adelante, it's learner-led workshops. So the learners decide what they want to, a skill they have that they want to share with the community,
Yes.
and other learners are able to join that workshop. It's 1 hour a day. And yeah, the learner gets to plan everything out basically. And it can be led by more than one learner or a learner and a learning guide together, which is actually happening in 2 weeks.
Right. And you have projects, don't you, that
We do.
you kind of decide what your project's going to be. So perhaps both of you could talk about what projects you've been working on.
well, for us, the systems are different because
right.
obviously I'm in the Explorers group, and there are 3 different Explorers, Creators, and Changemakers. And in the Explorers, we have Explore an hour usually, nearly every day. And what we do there is there's like a topic. For example, we had a topic, the solar system, and there's a pre-learning, then there's the discovery, which we pre-learned for. Then we the next day we do our 3 to 1s, which is basically 3 things I learned, 2 things I learned and I could like use. Actually, no, it's 2 things I learned and I want to learn more about, and the 1 thing I could use in the future on a daily basis. And then we do the output, and the output can be done in many different ways. For example, the solar system one, I wasn't there unfortunately, but there was one where the output was our own escape room, and it was really fun because I never thought, I mean, designing your own escape room, it sounded a little crazy to me. And I didn't think we could pull it off till the end when people were actually like doing it and struggling with it. And it was really fun. That's like one of the things about Learn Life, where you like, it's a crazy idea you never pictured in your head, which they actually do, and find possible ways to give you like an all-rounded aspect of the world with crazy things you never thought were possible, like designing your own escape room.
Which was amazing. You got feedback. I mean, it was so amazing to see 11 to 13-year-olds leading adults through an escape room, which was like so hard for them to complete, right? They're like, this is adult level. You should charge for this.
Wow.
Like, you guys were amazing. It was so cool.
well
It was so innovative, like with the black light
Yeah.
and having like all the different mirrors you had to use to find clues. It was so cool.
Yeah, it was actually super complicated.
Yeah, it took one group, me and one of my classmates, Beard, and Yaran, another of my classmates, was a station where you had to figure out a password for a computer to get in and see a security camera. And it took the people so long at first. Like the first group, it took them about 15 minutes just to get on like the past this part.
It took us 20.
Wait, what?
It took us 20 minutes.
So yeah, it was obviously for me, it was super funny sitting there watching them struggle with something I made. And honestly, it was just such a blast making something like that.
Sure,
And
do you
then
wanna talk
seeing
about-
people
oh,
like
sorry. Go ahead.
trying it. Yeah, it was really great.
Do you want to talk about your sweet bass project?
Oh, heck yeah. So I am a change maker, which is the more self-led group. We get to choose our own projects and what we want to do. We get 4 hours a day of studio time, which is time for us to be in the studios, in which we get to choose our own project and do whatever we want. So I am really into 3D printing, and I recently started learning how to play the bass. And I'm a person that needs an emotional attachment to something to actually learn it. So I thought, why don't I make a bass for myself? So I sat down one afternoon and I decided, okay, I'm 3D printing one. I went on the internet, looked at reference photos, looked at how a bass is supposed to be made, because I had no idea. And in like 8 or so hours that I spent here, I had a full 3D design of a bass. And I 3D printed it. And it rocked. It was amazing. It is still amazing. I 3D printed it, took about 60 hours total. It was made in pieces, so you had to glue it together with a bit of epoxy. And then I got another learner to paint it for me, because we really like collaboration here. And I thought, what a good idea. Sachi, another learner here, is amazing at painting. And she made some super, super sweet drawings on it. And I have been learning a lot of bass since then. I actually spent about 3 hours a day during the holidays practicing.
Wow.
Yeah. Lots of free time.
I'm curious from both of you as well, in terms of having been at more traditional schools before this, was it challenging to adapt, or did you take to it quite quickly, or was it like, whoa, what is this? How did you find it?
I never really connected with the traditional mentality. I kind of had the Learnlife mentality from the get-go. I never really saw the purpose in what they do in traditional schools. So for me, it wasn't hard to adapt to this learning system, but it was hard to get all the terminology down. So learning it and everything, it takes a minute.
Well, for me, I moved here pretty much just for the school, from Moscow to Barcelona, and my parents told me a lot about it. And Momo was similar, but when I came here, I mean, it didn't take me any adapting, because I just like went with the flow, and it was like from the minute I started, I wanted to come here every single day. And like pretty much every learner in my program, or most of them, they don't want to be off, or they don't want to be on weekends. But the first time I actually made like good friends, and I actually like did a lot of things with them was here. I mean, now I go skate with my friends a lot, and they come to my house for sleepovers, and it's the first time I have this, and it's thanks to like the Learn Life mentality, so to say. So I think it was a really easy adaptation for me because of these aspects and these pros for me and my development.
These guys, I wouldn't say are atypical, but yeah, typically there's like an adaptation process. And you've seen other learners. Sometimes it takes them 2 months, 3 months, a year really to get their head around it, where we have learners still being like, so when are the exams? When are the exams? Like, when are you going to punish me?
Yeah.
Like, we're not. We're going to grow your capacity to self-manage and self-regulate, and we're going to, make you think about your own responsibility within this community rather than hold you accountable in traditional ways of like, okay, you're bad, and we're going to use ineffective methods like punishment to try to right your behavior. It really depends on the kid and what their prior experiences have been. I mean, you went to charter art school. You have your parents who are innovators and entrepreneurs, and they're out there in the world. And so I think that you come from different backgrounds, but some kids come from straight through traditional school, and it's tough.
Yeah.
I mean, the traditional system really gets engraved into your head.
But I think this might be interesting given the context of your podcast about work is we talk a lot about executive functioning and what does it mean to actually be a self-determined learner and how that takes a lot of skill. Because if you've been in traditional school all your life, then it's like, all right, now create an escape room. You're like, what? I've been told what I'm supposed to do all my life, right? So how do you have the skills? Maybe you guys could talk a little bit about like what is some of the challenges you've had in trying to really figure out how to be self-determined as a learner. What does that mean to direct your own learning?
You want to go?
Sure. I sucked at time management. I could not do something in like a million years because I would work for 2.5 minutes, then I'd take a mental break for 3 hours, and then I'd work for another 2.5 minutes. But through being here and through Devon being there like, hey, are you taking a break? And other learning guides pushing me towards not disconnecting from the activity for as long, I got into the mentality of, okay, I'm gonna work for 3 hours, gonna take a break. Gonna work for 25 minutes if it's really hard, and then gonna take a 5-minute break. I actually got into using the Pomodoro method, which is working for 25 minutes, 5-minute break, working wonders.
For me, at first it was kind of hard because I had to be way more independent than I was before, in the sense that they like explain the activity and like the topic, so to say, and then they like let you learn and do it in your own way. And I never really thought about my own way because of like the classical system. So like the first week or so, I was kind of like a little. I was always asking, what do I do? What do I do? Because I wasn't 100% sure. And then on the weekends, like towards the end of that week, I realized that like I can learn my own way now, and like no one's gonna tell you what to do. And that's when I started making the most out of like the actual like opportunities you get. I mean, now we're sitting in a carpentry studio. Across the wall is a music studio. We have a multimedia studio. I mean, this school is fully equipped for like an amazing learning workshop, anything really.
Yeah,
So-
we're decked out.
Yeah.
What would you say at this point in time is the greatest gift that Learnlife has given you?
So one thing that really shocked me in the mornings when I started here is that I didn't wake up dreading coming to school. I had pretty bad depression because I wasn't happy where I was. But after coming here and being here for 3 months, I had friends for the first time in my life. And I had people that I could count on, so I was happy. So I feel like Learnlife has, in a way, gifted me the ability to be happy and to have a place where I can I basically live here. I come here at 9 a.m., leave at 7:30. So yeah, that's a big gift.
Well, for me, it was more of the ability to be free here. But also, as I said earlier, like the first time that I actually felt that I had real friends who were really committed to being like, to pursuing our friendship and just like communicating a lot. And it was the first time I felt that because, I mean, in my Russian schools, I had friends, but it would be like in school we're friends, and then when we go home, we pretty much don't really talk about each other. And here it's different because it's more like so much of the program is based on team building, team working, but also sometimes alone, that it's pretty much really hard not to have friends when you come here. So yeah, but also freedom, because it's the first time I can freely learn in my own ways. And yeah, I think those are the two main things that I love about Learnlife.
And a core part of our model is personal relationships and their socio-emotional development. And I wonder if you guys could maybe talk about real talk, and does that help with kind of the sense of community and connecting with people and feeling like you have?
Yes, it does. It does. Real talk is, well, in my program, it's 2 hours a week in which we all sit down. Everyone in the program, we're 8 people, 9 maybe. and we just have a conversation about a topic that we have previously picked or just comes up in the moment. And we are completely open about it, and we are free to speak our mind. There's no judgment, there's nothing. Like, you can be free and you can say, oh, yeah, that sucks, or I love it. And you can express your unpopular opinion or just simply hear everybody else's thoughts or feelings. And it doesn't just help you get it off your chest, it helps you see how other people are feeling, and it builds on your empathy. I feel like since I started here, through real talk and through just listening to people, my empathy has gotten so much better. I'm able to sit down with someone and listen to their problems for 3 hours. I would have never done that before. So yeah.
Well, for me, real talk is similar in the sense that like we can talk about our like problems and things like that, and that it's like no judgment. But for me, there we in the last cycle we focused on social skills, and for me it was really eye opening how like honestly how unself-aware you can be not realizing it. So I think I've grown a lot in that aspect. And also I was surprised by how many people actually think that it's not useful, when in my personal opinion it's one of the most important things to living a happy life, because you need to be able to connect and talk with other people to survive on this planet. Because I mean, we're so many people on this planet, and you can't just be alone your whole life. Just like it's really hard. So yeah, it's really important for me because I'm also like not only self-awareness but awareness of others in your space. I've grown in that, in my opinion. So it's a really important 45 minutes to an hour. But for this cycle, they swapped it around with CCLs, which are core concept labs. It's like math, numeracy, history, science, things like that. And now instead of having real talk every day, 45 minutes, it's 2 hours a week. And then we have CCLs 45 minutes every day.
It's because you've been so quick to be enlightened that we just don't feel like you need 4 hours a week.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So I think I need to go now
Yes,
because it's
I was
4.
just
So
going to say.
thank you very
Thank you
much.
so
Bye
much.
bye.
Samir.
Yeah,
Bye, bro,
See you
Screeno.
later. See you later too.
he's amazing.
Yeah.
I think Samir speaks 7 languages,
Wow.
something like that. Spanish, Catalan, English, German,
Russian.
Russian, and I think Punjabi.
He does definitely speak Punjabi.
Oh.
And I think one more.
Yeah, I think I'm missing one. Anyways,
Yeah.
His twin brother led an Adelante on Russian with another 12-year-old, which was amazing to see 2 12-year-olds basically leading a workshop with 16, 17, 18-year-olds. But again, now it's time for us to do a 3-2-1, so you're going to reflect on 3 things you learned, 2 skills that are transferable. You know, it's like,
Wow.
they're 12. You know, it was brilliant, yeah.
Yeah, and it's beautiful how the other people respected them. We have such a strong sense of community here that it's not like, ha, you're a 12-year-old, you can't teach me anything. No, it's more of, okay, what do you have to teach me? What can we do together? How can we grow?
It's kind of funny. It strikes me that traditional schools, the kind of pedagogy, like the learning paradigm, is kind of this like secret thing that only grown-ups know.
Yeah.
And yet it seems like here it's like you're kind of working in Learnlife and on it at the same time. Like you're kind of practicing the learning paradigm itself as a learner by teaching others and by understanding what it, you know, how you teach someone something or how you create a learning experience.
I mean, it's the only way to create lifelong learners is you equip them with all the skills of how to learn, right? And so we are really explicit about this is the best way to learn. We did a couple months ago a super learner boot camp, in which it was all the tools that you need to direct your own learning. How do you remove distractions? How do you really focus on optimizing, prioritizing, all the executive functioning skills I was talking about. So yeah, it should be transparent. I think this is part of a lot of the old systems of whether that be law or education or whatever. It's like you have to wear the garb and you have to speak the language and no one has access to it. But that's silly, right? If we want a generation of learners and doers, then we have to make it a little bit more open.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, if we want people to be happy with what we're doing, we can't just say, oh, you like to do that. They have to say, okay, I like this and I don't like this. I feel like we should change that. So we prototype, we iterate, we just adapt to what we need.
It's amazing also because you guys are talking about skills that I'm on this podcast talking to professionals about, and how do we get, adults, professionals to learn these skills, and you guys are learning them now. It's just, it makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Learnlife is, hence the name, is not just designed for this age group. But we started with the traditional high school age, like the 12 to 18, because that's where the most disruption is needed, right? Primary school, there's a lot of options. It's not so serious, but when you're 12, things get really serious. There's exams, and you better go to university. And so we thought that would be the first space to disrupt. But we imagined it being 0 to however old the oldest person alive is. And because, people need that across their lifetimes and will continue to need to upskill as they change careers every 5 or 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, we talk a lot about lifelong learning, which is pretty self-descriptive, is learning throughout your whole life and how to promote that. Actually, in the Super Learner Bootcamp, we had a lot of skills that I have been applying to my life and that I feel that I will be applying till I die, because, I mean, they're just essential to function, and, like, not just professionally, in my own life. Time management, just eliminating distractions. I mean, I'm cleaning the house. My dog comes up to me. No, I'm cleaning. Just go to bed. I can't be distracted. And how to eliminate them, how to get yourself in the zone, how to have flow in your life. It's just essential. And it's better to learn them young. More flexibility.
Definitely. I'm curious as well about, because I mean, all of this is kind of music to my ears, but I imagine to some people out there it must sound pretty utopian. What are some of the main points that skeptics, or main questions that skeptics kind of pose at you, or say, well, yeah, but
When do they? Well, number one question we get from parents is, what about the diploma? Yeah, it's the big one. And so we have a partnership with an online school in the U.S. so that they can get co-validated for the work that they do here, and then they get the American diploma if they want it. We don't have a lot of kids who are doing that. I'd say maybe 9 out of 60 something who've chosen that route. A lot of families are like, no, it's fine. Like, university is kind of deflated currency now, and we don't feel like it's useful. And I think a lot of people don't want to close that door, though, so they go that way. And so that's number one question. So we have the answer, and we're developing a more permanent solution to that, which will be our own kind of learning vita, which is the equivalent of the CV, but for learning, and that's something that you take with you across your life, but that's in development. But give us a couple of years, and hopefully we have companies, like I'm sure the kinds of people you're interviewing, who are like, yes, we need an alternative to this diploma that means nothing to us. And so we want to have something that's meaningful. So that'll help that. But in the interim, we have this stopgap, which is this online school. The other big thing is, when do they learn maths?
History.
Right. Tell me about history and math. And it's interesting because when we pull back the curtain and we show them, actually we have mapped out, especially for the younger years, like cycle by cycle, what skills they should be learning that are aligned to different international curriculums. But the kids don't know that because they're like you said, learning about an escape room or the solar system or doing something else or doing carpentry or kitchen stuff, and they're learning proportional reasoning and single variable equations and these kind of things, but it's almost invisible because it's applied. And then what are the other big ones? I think if you let them direct their own learning, won't they just like
slack off
and
not
won't they
do
just
anything?
sleep all
Yeah.
like, won't they just study napping? Which at the beginning some do, right? Like that's it takes a moment for them to detox from traditional schools and feel like, oh no, actually I need to be. No one is going to come and force me to do a thing, so I better get it together. And sometimes they need a month to get that out of the system or 2. But I think the more our community grows and the more people like Gerard are doing really cool projects, the more that passion is contagious and they don't want to slack off and just do nothing because they see their peers doing something different. And what's interesting is like learning is the new cool, which I think is we're building there still, right? It's not 100% there.
But it's getting there.
It's getting there. Samir and his brother are taking violin classes, and their mom was telling me it's like they're treating the violin like skateboarding. They want to show each other different tricks, and they've recruited 2 others, and they have this mini orchestra now, and like it's cool to learn and show off what you're learning. And so the slacking thing is an easy thing to just show the projects. I mean, the parents that are disbelievers, we bring them to our showcase at the end of the cycle, and they see all the projects and things people have been working on, or one of the 360s where they present their learning for the cycle. And it's kind of indisputable. Yeah, they've been doing really cool work. It's not just about academic disciplines. It's about skills you need for life and your own self-awareness and personal development.
I mean, that's about it, honestly. You can't do anything else. Like, you can't just have them be part of. I mean, you could theoretically have them be part of Learn Life. Actually, we've had parents be leading Adelantes, and they saw how it was, and yeah, they kind of became part of the community.
I'm curious to learn a bit more about learning guides and some of the team that support the learners, and how have you built that team, and how do you what are the skills that are valuable for those people to support this kind of self-managed learning?
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, at the core is personal relationships, so it has to be people who are highly relatable. We need people to be able to build quick personal relationships with the learners and see them as people and what their needs are, and not kind of whatever their projected need is onto them, which is hard as an adult to not be like, this is what you need for your future, and this is what's the right thing for you. That's hard to avoid, but still we see people that come in here and they really honestly want to hear what the learners have and adapt to the learner rather than have the learner adapt to them. Like Gerard was saying, like we're constantly prototyping, testing, iterating on what's working and what's not working based on learner feedback and learners being more and more involved in program design. And so I think that, and then agility, or the team, all of the learning guides work across all three programs and see all of the learners by design. The most dangerous thing I think in traditional schools is that teachers work in silos. They're by themselves, single teacher classrooms. They don't have a supportive community. They burn out and they leave. Whereas we plan together, we're constantly collaborative, and we see all the kids. And so, I mean, that forces collaboration when you have to co-design things. But you have to be really agile because we're making the bridge as we cross it in a lot of ways. All of what we do here is based on, dozens of years of best practices around the world in different schools, but we're trying to create in a way that works for this context and is an amalgam of those things. And so that's not easy to do. So I think people are really flexible and agile and willing to adapt to the needs of this community and to the kids.
And what is your personal motivation in all of this? Like, why is Learn Life important to you?
It's funny. I think in the same way, a lot of I'm going to make not friends right now by saying a lot of psychologists are a little batty, and so that's why they go to study psychology to figure out what's going on with them. I think that to some degree, a lot of educators have had crappy experiences in school, or conversely, really good ones as they want to carry it on. But I think for me, traditional school was terrible. And I hated it, and then I had a couple of really amazing life-changing teachers who showed me you could do it differently. I was like, well, why aren't we doing that? And so motivated by a sense of justice and wanting to change the world, I thought that would be the best place to insert myself, because obviously global impact, almost all kids in the world are in school, so what a great place to start. And so it's really cool, and I think that's at a more meta level. At the more micro level, it's just being able to have the kind of relationship I have with Gerard, where we can collaboratively do things, and that was the feeling I got from that initial teacher that put me on the path of wanting to be in education. Was he came to me and talked to me like a person. He involved me in the things that he was working on and doing, and we're still friends to this day. Adelantes and I, this teacher I had in high school, and so I appreciate that I can have that. So it gives me personal satisfaction to know that I can work in a community that feels really good and interactive and collaborative, but also know that hopefully we make a difference in the world too.
On this word community that we've mentioned quite a few times, I know that part of the vision is to have this community. So, for example, I believe you have like a co-working place where there are some startups or some entrepreneurs that learners can interact with. And what's the kind of vision for that, and how does that work?
Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Who are some of the adults that you've interacted with? I know you've done stuff with Corkscrew, with Andreu, right?
I talk with everyone.
Gerard is the glue that holds the community together. It's a social butterfly. He's talking to everybody. I mean, can you talk a little bit about what it's like to have professionals in here and some of the workshops they've done, or just even having them in the space so that you can talk to them?
At the beginning, it felt a little weird to be with adults in a school, quote unquote school. I wasn't really used to it, but then I started talking to them, and they were all about Learn Life. They shared the same views as the learning guides do, and they pushed learners. Not like they didn't even have to interact with them on the daily. They just did stuff in the background that just helped them grow. And I started seeing that more and more. And then I got into a couple of workshops with Innova, which are a company that pushes young people to innovate and create new things. And we had a couple of workshops with them that really showed me that I could take advantage of what they knew, and I could be with them for a bit, and I could say, hey, at any point in time, I could just go up to them and be like, hey, I need help with this. Could you just sit down with me for 15 minutes at some point this week and teach me about it? So it's a big tool that we have access to that we can exploit at any given time.
And our coworkers who are part of this innovative education ecosystem, they know when they come here that that's part of what, I mean, there's synergies that happen both ways, right? Like they often end up getting contracts and things because people want to do work with us and that's their specialty, and vice versa, they come in and do workshops with the kids. What's really cool is looking out the window now from the digital fabrication lab to the fashion lab. Belen out there is our fashion expert. So she's here only twice a week for 2 hours, and she's an expert in fashion. She comes from that world, so she's not a trained teacher. The kids love her, and she's doing all kinds of cool projects. And we have that for each of the studios. So in addition to the coworkers, the learners have exposure to professionals in their field every day of the week, right? We have someone who's a music expert. We have an arts director for multimedia. We have a computer architect who's right now doing a build your own lie detector workshop right now. They're doing build your own, create your own backpacks in fashion, and these are experts in their fields doing it. So I think it gives them a lot of exposure. Unfortunately, as a learning guide, even though each of us are experts in something, we often get this like kind of, oh, well, you don't know me because you don't understand fashion. You're not from the fashion world. Like, you're not a designer. I was like, well, actually, I could probably tell you a lot more about design than you imagine, but it's still helpful to have someone who's like, well, I'm in the field today, and so I think that's been helpful. I mean, you've been working with Batistas, maybe you could talk about what is that like?
So Batistas actually is getting a PhD in the exact topic that I'm super interested in. So he basically taught me from the ground up how to use FPGAs, which are chips that don't have a locked-in physical configuration. So through code, you can basically generate an architecture inside the chip, which is amazing. And nobody in the engineering/electronic engineering field knows how to use them. Well, it's a very niche topic that can make big bucks. So I thought, I'm going to learn about this. And he basically taught me from the ground up how to use them, and I've been practicing over the holidays. He gave me some super hard exercises to do so I wouldn't get bored, which was amazing. And they're a really positive influence on everybody, because I've been talking to all the learners, and they're like, oh my god, this is amazing. We have actual professionals that come here, and they can show us how to do it right. Yeah, the learning guides are the learning guides, and they know a lot of stuff, but they're not currently in the field. Adri, who is my mentor, is another learning guide. He has a degree in math and civil engineering. He is extremely good at math. He knows a lot about coding, but he couldn't really teach me. So then we got Batistas in here, and bam, this whole new world was opened up to me. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Amazing. I'm wondering what, for both of you, what would you hope for in terms of the future of Learnlife and the next kind of few years? What would you like to unfold?
I want more Learnlives. I want to be able to go to any country and go into Learnlife. I want a vacation to a different Learnlife. I really want to see the space in Hamburg open. Is that? Okay. So I want to see the new space that we're making in Hamburg, which is going to be massive, and we're going to have a super cool makerspace open, and I want to work there as a learning guide. So I'm actually kind of training and practicing with leading Adelantes. I've led 7, and I'm practicing and working on how to direct people, how to guide people into learning, and that's really kind of actually pushed me into learning how to learn. So that's kind of what I hope for.
Yeah.
I mean, our next big push is to develop a grow program where we work with, we bring in teachers and start teacher training and school leader training, I think more importantly, to get school leaders to want to change, right? It's really hard because I've been that teacher in that school that has no support. And so getting school leadership on board, bringing in teachers to train, and I think it's starting to create a small army of amazing teachers who are ready out to go transform their schools is the next big step. And so we've had tons of good feedback with the programs we've run already. We've only had a few like day-long programs, and we've gone to a few schools and helped consult with them, and the feedback is incredible. And so we want to start doing more long-term things where people can come and spend 3 months here and really get immersed in what we're doing before they go back and launch their own hub. So that's the kind of the thing that we're kicking off this year, is starting to grow the number of hubs we have in our grow program, so people who want to not launch their own hub but transform an existing school can do that.
Yeah, it's interesting. What would be your advice if there are people listening who work in traditional schools, for example, who may be feeling frustrated, maybe even a bit of despair? What would you say to them?
Come to Learnlife, get inspired, see how we do things. I don't say that as a pitch. I think genuinely the way that before I was even involved in this project, before the project was even an idea, I mean, that's what I was doing as a teacher, was going to as many places of inspiration as possible. Our chief learning officer, Stephen, who was leading debatably the most innovative school in Australia for 20 years, he would take groups of teachers from all over the world on a vision tour of Europe and other places to see where are the different kinds of changes. So I think there's lots of ways to virtually or in person go and organize your own kind of vision tour. So I would say try to figure out what's happening in the world. Our model will be open source. I mean, already you go to our website, you can see the different elements, and they're linked to research. Our research team is really working really hard to create white papers that link to research from around the world that's saying you can go here, you can look at this, and to get inspired. So that's one thing, is to start crafting a vision for what you want. But I think what's been most important to us is the team, is finding the other people, recruiting allies, sharing the vision. I think if you really strongly communicate a vision that's attractive and appealing and has this kind of idea whose time has come feel to it, people are attracted to that and they want to join and grow the vision from there. And so I think the more that people are opening that invitation. Before we launched with the kids, we ran a series of events called LearnX, where we just put out a thing on Meetups that said, hey, other innovative educators, let's get together and talk, because we need to talk. And we had, something like 120 people over the course of 5 events coming to chat with us about what's innovative, what's exciting, what are possibilities for collaboration. And I think in those ways you feel less alone. And I know there's a lot of those in the world now. There's ed camps and all these other kind of teacher meetups things where you can just get together with like-minded people. So I'd say just try not to be alone, because there are other people out there who want to grow this vision.
Yeah, definitely. And for you, Gerard, it sounds like perhaps you were on a path to become a learning guide in Learnlife.
Well, as Devon said, I've had a really bad experience with my prior education, and I want to change that. I don't want anyone else to go through that. So I want to become a learning guide, and I want to push for a change in education too. So I would like to. I mean, I'm actually working with Adri, my mentor, and Devon on some learning guiding things.
That's cool. And for some of the people who are listening, who are people working in organizations, maybe they're CEOs or leaders in organizations around the world, like what would you say to them in terms of, if some of these brilliant learners from Learnlife are going to go out into the world, into some of these workplaces, what are these organizations, these companies, what do they need to do to create a kind of ecosystem that would be, friendly or conducive to continuing that kind of lifelong learning, all of the skills and the ways of being that you're learning here?
Set up a positive community and try to build on the positive relationships between employees. If you're sitting in a cubicle with Deborah, whom you don't know and you have no interactions with throughout the day, you're gonna get bored in 5 minutes and you're not gonna have someone to push you through the day. So having a community and a group of people that can work together on improving something else is a very good thing. Also, having a comfortable space with a lot of light, like we have here, with openness so you can see and you can hear what's happening around you, is super helpful. And yeah, those would be my main 2 tips.
That's very insightful. What about you, Jenny?
What would I say? I had like 5 thoughts enter at once that, I think of John Cotter, the Harvard professor's dual operating system model, right, of having a little bit of the traditional hierarchy so things can just function, but really having a network model so that teams from all over the organization can work together and innovate and create. I think it feels really good to be innovative and agile. It takes a lot of retraining for people who haven't grown up in that environment, but when you've been part of Learnlife, I mean, I think if you proposed Gerard a 9 to 5 that was, okay, here's these deliverables and this is your agenda for the day, like there's no way Gerard's gonna drown in that, and all these kids are. And so how do we get out of the way? How do we really, co-create vision? I guess maybe that's it. The word for me is co-creation. How do we invite people into the process and then allow them to have agency so that they can do good work? But I think very few people are going to take marching orders from other people. And so having an inclusive environment that really taps into what are the expertise, the wisdom of those they're working with.
And what would you say are the most kind of valuable, precious skills or gifts that Learnlife learners would bring to an organization or the world of work?
Aside from our good looks, I think that we got a lot of things going for us. I would hope we're still moving in this direction, but that's one of my goals for this next, not this cycle, but the following one, is to really think about how do we address big, hairy, challenging problems, and to have people who can come in and be flexible and fast thinking and divergent and convergent thinking people so that they can solve that. I think the learners right now are doing the first step to that, which is building a base of core conceptual knowledge so that they know enough to even think about the problem, and then also developing enough technical skills so that once they have some ideas, they can start building a solution to it. But we really want to deepen those skills, and so I would hope that you could hire a Learnlife learner and say, we've got this challenge, what can we do? And I think all of our learners can recite the design thinking process for you. They can talk about rapid prototyping. They have all these they're developing these skill sets. And so I think that's what we offer, is the capacity to come in, to think quickly, to develop good solutions that are based in an empathic process and with a user focus.
I would completely agree with Devon. Exactly what he said, honestly. It's just, we're growing and we're learning how to be flexible and how to adapt our brain to any challenge, any problem, how to basically switch tasks super easily, how to mold our mind to what's happening around us. So yeah, that's something that we could potentially bring to any company. If they have one challenge and all of a sudden, hey, this popped up, what do I do? Well, they hire a Learnlife learner, and we go there. We see, okay, you have these set of problems. We can prototype something real quick. We can see if it works, and then we can iterate on that. We can modify it. We can make it better. We could potentially bring the ability to change anything on the fly.
Sold. So I guess in kind of wrapping up, are there any other stories or words or anything else that you would like to share with listeners that we haven't covered yet?
Well, I think the voice that hasn't been represented right now are the parents, who I wish we could have had here. But we just had our 360s in December, and hearing them talk about their kids, because we see them every day, we see the growth, but we had so many parents in tears talking about I can't believe how much growth my child has made, and I was totally uncertain about bringing them here, but now I know this is the place. And hearing the growth that they've seen at home. Samir's mom, for example, was telling me, he's he stops and thinks before he says things now. What an improvement, and it's true. I see him the other day, I saw him in the hall, he's walking, and this kid offered him a chocolate milk. He grabbed it and just started walking away. He's you saw him pause, he turned around, he's thanks so much, Orson. It was really cute that he's oh yeah, I need to, and the parents notice these things, and they see, I think one of the most important things is the increase in confidence and self-esteem, where we have, like Gerard was saying, a lot of learners who come out feeling depressed, feeling like they've been damaged in some way, and they come here and to feel like they've been healed to some extent. Was really cool to have the parent feedback. It's a magical thing, the 360s, to have this chance to get together. It's really cool. And they sit in on each other's too. You always have a peer in there as well as a learning guide, and the parents are there. So it's cool that the whole community comes and builds you up and reflects back to you too what you've learned and what we've seen your growth to be. And so it's pretty impactful. What would you say, Gerard?
My mother actually ended up crying in the car after my 360 because she was shocked. She doesn't really see me all that much because she works a lot. So she got to see what I do, and she could have never imagined in a million years that I would be able to 3D print a base without any luthier experience. I would also like to add that everybody here are basically friends with each other. I can go up to everybody, to anybody, and just say, hey, want to hang out for like 20 minutes? And they'll be super glad to do so. So we have a very tight-knit group of people that loves to push each other to grow. And I kind of stumbled into it because I didn't know what was going to happen. And so, yeah, just feeling all the acceptance has been amazing. And I was feeling like myself again because in traditional school I had no friends because I was typical, oh, you're a nerd. You like video games? Oh my god, I'm gonna go and do something else. So coming into a community in which I can just be myself and be like, hey, what if we made this? And we sit down, we spend 3 hours designing it, and then we build it. All of a sudden, bam, I have this group of people that I can be happy, comfortable with, and it's magical.